Hi, I am Suri and this is Cremechiss. And if this is your first time on my channel, welcome. And if you haven't got our work before, please check out our previous videos. We do a lot of movie reviews and story reviews and show reviews. We're kind of trying to cover as much possible cinema and, I don't know, episodes from around the world and bringing it to you and watching good stuff and recommending good stuff, so um you don't have to waste your time looking through, I don't know, tons of written reviews of about stuff. And I am so happy that you're here. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, and once you watch this video and you like this video, please like it, share it with your friends and others, and do let us know what you think about it in the comments as well. So I'm really excited and nervous about this review that I'm about to give. It is thematic of nostalgia. It is thematic of childhood, to the point that I am drinking something which makes me very nostalgic and very, I don't know, very, makes me feel very comforted and makes me think about every decision I have taken from a child to an adult, and little things that I left behind, friends and habits and comfort and familiarity of things that I left behind. Because when you grow up, your dreams change and your expectations from your life change. In many ways, what you leave behind is a past life. And I know past lives are associated more with like rebirth and spiritual awakenings of kinds, but I always find, when people use that word, that phrase a lot, said, oh, in a past life I was very rebellious teenager or something like they're talking about themselves, but as if they're talking about a different version of themselves. And today's movie recommendation is about something in the same strata of things. And if you haven't already guessed it from my repeated use of the word past lives, we are talking about Past Lives today. And it is a fantastic film. It is so well written, and it is for the first time depicted, I think, the immigrant struggle, but not from the perspective of making it in another country, but the immigrant struggle of everything that you leave behind in the pursuit of a dream. And there are some fantastic movies and fantastic shows that talk about immigrants and their transition into a different world and the cultural clashes that they have. If you haven't watched The Namesake and you like those kind of stories, I would heavily recommend it. It is Irfan Khan and Tabu's finest performance, and it is way beyond its time. It's adapted from a book, and it talks about two immigrants who leave India, come to US to pursue a better life and continue to stay there so that their kids could have better opportunities. And Past Lives, in many ways, is kind of related to the concept of leaving behind all that is familiar and good and diving into the great unknown and not really knowing where that leads you, except for having faith that it'll lead you somewhere good. And the reason I love this movie is because it is written in a way which is truly realistic. It is heartbreakingly realistic, because many times, you'll watch immigrant cinema and you'll realize that it is extremely, they'll show the struggle, but then they'll also kind of give a bit of a kind of a sugar coating to it, that ultimately, it's for the greater good and it works out and stuff like that. But then sometimes you got to think what happens to a person's existence before they decided to make that move, that transition. And the first time I ever left home, there were small things that really bugged me. Like I used to always think about how the water tasted different back from where I had grown up, and I used to miss that. I used to miss the way the water tasted, and not that anything was wrong with the water of the new place I was in. It's just that it seemed unfamiliar and it was really stupid and a very odd longing, but it did exist. And there were small things I did to feel more at home. Like I'm Indian, so I eat with my hands, and whenever I was home, I would make it a point to eat with my hands and make it a point to make things that my mother made for me because I wanted to feel closer to home. And one thing that I saw myself doing constantly was keeping in touch with friends that I grew up with, having long conversations on video chats and Skype calls, and I have left home in a time when WhatsApp video calling and iPhone video calling and Messenger, none of those, they weren't a thing to the point that you could just, like log on and readily have someone available. It was harder because, it was Skype and you had to log in and you had to be, mindful of how you use the internet because it wasn't available for all the live long day. It was like a treat. It was a luxury. I started thinking about how the first set of friends, when they left home, probably went to another country to study. Like I left home for another country to study, and the first round when it happened, when my friends left, my friends left before I did, we would have these little sessions and we would talk on Skype for hours and we would fall asleep talking, to each other because we were on different time zones. And it was really amazing to have that sense of comfort and that sense of security, even though it was purely virtual. But over time, what happens is, you kind of come out of that, and then you have to step out and see the real world and interact with real people, and you have to remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing, because eventually I moved away and I found that I had a bunch of chores to do. I had to, either the laundry was left to do, or I had to cook, or I had to finish my homework, or I had to go to work, or I had to meet some friends that weren't talking to me through the laptop. And that heavy set realization that your childhood is kind of winding up and you are not going to just do whatever you like, and reminding yourself over and over again what you've truly left your home for. And this doesn't have to be intercontinental or you're leaving states or countries. It could be something as simple as just being in the same city and losing contact with your friends. I was having this amazing conversation with my mom the other day, and she spoke about this woman who was like her, who loved to read and like her, and they had similar tastes, and because they worked together, they went through stuff together, because your work friends, if you ever are lucky enough to have friends at work, which I know that is a very interesting relationship to maintain. You tend to have a friend for life, and because they've seen you go through things at work, right? Because work is where you earn your bread and butter. And they lived in the same city and they still lost touch because, responsibilities took over and life changed for both of them. And at one point they were not working in the same office anymore, and it got harder and harder to keep in touch. And this movie talks about the concept of leaving behind something because you have to put yourself first. You have to put your life first, your ambitions first, your dreams first. And that sometimes comes at the cost of relationships which are really near and dear to you. And it comes at the cost of that peace and that sense of soothing comfort that that you tend to give up because you don't you cannot live through your relationships of the past. Either those relationships grow with you, they go in the same direction as you're going, or you have to let them go and hope that when you do rekindle that relationship or when you do meet that friend, it will work out and it will be like no time has passed. Now, this movie talks about our protagonist who has gone through something similar. Now, while the decision to immigrate was not hers, it was her parents, because they wanted a better life for her. They wanted to pursue a different career and they wanted to leave, their country behind. I'm going to try my best to not give spoilers, because if people haven't watched this, I would really like them to go and enjoy this. And I would really like them to go and see it and come back here and, have a little chat with me and tell me what they thought and if they have been through something similar. Now, our protagonist is this wonderful child of immigrant parents who, was given a dream, in legacy, and she had to immigrate twice, and now she's in US and she's working as a writer and she's very creative and she has these amazing, these amazing parents who are very supportive of her because they are, in the creative industry, they're writers and photographers and she, just like her parents, also becomes a writer. And you get to see this stunning scene where she has this friend in school and they hang out together and they walk together and they go home together and they play together. They've grown up together and everything about their lives is very simple at that point of time. They have not yet immigrated. And she tells her mom that she's going to marry this friend of hers who's this little boy, and she sees her whole life with him. And she has a crush on him because he's so cute, and he truly is. I mean, that the way they have made this movie, it just makes you smile. It makes you feel as if you have been transported into this girl's home, and nothing about that seems alien. Nothing about that seems new or unfamiliar, and I don't know how they pull this off in their direction. So the way the movie starts is truly amazing. You see the actress, the character Nora, she's sitting at the bar with two men, and one seems to be a Korean man. He's very handsome and very suave and looks, like he's come straight out of the movies, but in a very ordinary setting, in a very New York setting. And she's sitting next to this other man who is not, he's like this very simple looking person, and he has these scraggly hair and he's adorable as well, but you can kind of see that she seems to have better chemistry. Nora seems to have better chemistry with this girl. And Nora herself being Korean, the people who are watching, because the camera is kind of set in a way that makes you see their perspective. It makes you see the perspective of the people who are people watching, basically. And they're kind of guessing. Said, is that maybe the two people are a couple, and the third white man is the friend, or because they're not even talking to him. They're just lost in each other. And the scene ends with her, like looking at both of them and then looking straight at the camera at us. And I haven't seen a more perfect way to introduce to us where the story is leading. Where you get to see in the beginning of the movie, a lot of movies do this, where you get to see in the beginning of the movie a random scene that you don't really know where it connects. And then you finish watching the movie and then like, oh, that's where that, and then that scene gets woven in and then you understand the context of that scene. This movie immediately both tells you and hides from you where this story is headed, which is amazing, which is so well done, because for the most part, I think it is really hard to do that especially with a story which is not a thriller of any kind. It is like reading someone's journal. It is so well written. It feels so personal and so intimate. It feels like you're reading someone's journal. And oh, let me have a sip. If anyone's wondering what I'm drinking, it's ice cream and cola, and it's my favorite thing growing up. And I watched this movie, and I'm just feeling a particular way. It's not even nostalgic. I'm just feeling like I should have perhaps never grown up or never gotten to this side of adulthood. I don't know. But what I admire about the storytelling is that it is very simple. It is very easy to follow in terms of, because there are a lot of cultural dynamics in this, and there's a lot of stuff in this which would make no sense if the director didn't know what they were doing, and if the intent was to exclude people from, like, oh, let just this be abstract and subtle and have no real context. And I honestly am not a big fan of artistic licenses where they put something in there and it makes no sense to anyone. I really enjoy a story that makes you feel a particular way, and I admire directors who succeed in making the audience feel in the exact way they wanted the audiences to experience that movie. And this movie, obviously, Past Lives has done that repeatedly, to the point where I'm just in complete admiration that this kind of storytelling exists, and I was lucky enough to watch it. So once you do watch this movie, there is this one thing which is consistent throughout the story, where you feel complete empathy and sympathy for the character. So Nora, who is the protagonist of the story, she, like I said, she's just this child who has no idea why her parents are, moving from one country to the other. And she decides to, many years later, like 12 years later, look up this friend that she grew up with, that she had a crush on. And in the flashback, we see her mom taking her to meet this boy, and they have kind of like a date. I don't know, they're kids, it's not a date, but it's them hanging out together and talking to each other and having a really good time, basically, and just playing. And you see this conversation happening in the background between the moms who are there to chaperone this date. And the boy's mom, she's basically saying, why are you migrating, why are you leaving, why do you have to take this decision? You guys are so successful over here. And she says, we need to do this because we feel we'll be more successful in US. And I think the way the movie is set up is to give us a proper understanding of why this has happened. Sometimes in immigration stories, you don't quite know. You have a generic idea. There's a very general idea of what's going on, but you don't know the roots of the story. And this story explains the roots. It gives you the past, the context of the past almost immediately. And what I find amazing is that Past Lives is not about just the girl's childhood. It is about the revisitation of a relationship which she has no real name for, other than the fact that this was a boy that I had a crush on when I was a child. That's it. That's the name of the relationship. There is no other name. And what happens eventually is, she moves away. They obviously, grow out of whatever. They grow out of each other, I guess. The boy goes through actual war. The girl is figuring out how to adjust to a new culture. And there's a scene where, the child version of Nora is just standing alone and feeling alienated, basically, which, was very common, considering that it's very common even now. If you're an immigrant, you will feel out of place. And she's crying and she's sad and she misses her friend. And she's thinking about the last time she says bye to the boy who walks home with her, the childhood friend who would drop her home. And how one day, without either of them realizing, that was the last time he dropped her home, because she moved away. And that scene, I don't know why, just talking about it is making me choke up a bit. It's just something about that scene makes me think about the last time I saw my best friend. He was, you know, in he was studying in UK and I was leaving to study somewhere else, and he literally, booked a flight to see me so that we would not miss each other, because tickets are expensive and we can't just like hop, skip, and jump countries. So he scheduled his graduation and stuff so he could say bye to me before I left, because he was arriving back to India while I was leaving. And we had 20 minutes to say bye to each other. And that was the last time I saw his face. That was the last time we beat each other up. That was the last time we made fun of each other, because we didn't want to experience real emotions, because God forbid teenagers, you know, um, face what they're actually feeling. We were so good at being delusional and so good at, straying away from what was actually, coming upon us. And I think of that often enough to, about pretty much anyone. Like even when I left, jump cities to find a job, there were people that I spent every evening with, that I went out dancing with, that knew me in my struggles, knew me when I was, graduating and finding a job, or, cramming for finals, and picked me up late at night because I was studying in the library. And I think about these people over and over again, and I wonder how my life would have been had I not met them. And I feel a sense of ache and joy and gratefulness, like all at the same time, because I feel the amount of gratitude that I feel because of them, that I had a past life at all because of them. It blows my mind. And you see in the movie, there's a scene that comes up now. Thanks, because and this is why this movie is amazing, because it's talking about a generation that did not have Facebook, did not have Messenger, did not have like a ton of different technology to keep in touch with each other, and then suddenly had all of it. So there's a generation of people, I fall in that generation as well, where you're finding people, you suddenly see their name pop up, you're suddenly seeing them showing up on your Instagram, people you may know, or showing up on some WhatsApp group that was defunct for years and now is suddenly active, and someone randomly added you. And it's just amazing to see that transition happen in this movie, where you see her talking to her mom, and she goes, "Oh, you remember that boy that I had a crush on as a child? Where is he? Have you heard of him? Do you know what's going on with him?" At this point of time, she's single and she's unmarried, and she's pursuing her dream, pursuing her career of writing. And she even got selected to go to a writer's retreat. So she's really killing it. She's doing really well. And her mom says, yeah, his name was Hai Sung, and let's look him up. Let's find out where he is. And she looks him up, and she finds him commenting on one of her father's pictures, because her father's a movie maker. And he goes, "I know this man. Does anyone know his daughter?" And he can't find her because she's come to US and changed her name, which is why he probably looked her up and didn't find her. And the timeline in which she looks for him and he looks for her is like a couple of weeks. So they truly, there's something amazing about that. I think the human experience, where two people have the same thought, who are connected in some way, who feel something almost at the same time, and she finds him, and then they start having conversations, and they start having like they catch up with each other, and there's this really sweet scene where she kind of gets an invite to talk with him on video call. And I think this is Skype, because I heard the Skype ringtone. I could be wrong, so please don't quote me on that. But she uses Skype, and right before the video call starts, she kind of like does her hair up like really nicely, because this is her childhood crush. She wants to look good for him. And what I think is amazing about this is that she when she has that conversation with him and she sees him for the first time, she goes, "Whoa!" And he kind of reciprocates like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm seeing you after all these years." And they catch up, and there's something going on over there which is not friendship. It's not a romance. It is not a romance. I cannot state this enough. If you are going and expecting a romance, please don't, because this is about the true immigrant story. This is not about romance. This is about the shoulda, woulda, couldas, the stuff that I had to stop the recording because this was one of my friends who is calling me up from another country, and this is the time difference. And years later, we are still talking to each other, which is amazing. And I'll call him after at the end of this. But as I was saying, this is about the path not taken, the story, and that's why it is phenomenal. That is why it is so endearing, the story. And she talks to him, and she starts feeling something, some sense of belonging and longing, and I never realized up until this moment that those are such different things. Like, she felt like she met someone who knew her, before she had to figure out who she was. And he met his long lost friend, and he asked her, like, what happened? How did you adjust to your life away from home? And she said, for the first couple of days in school, I used to cry a lot. And then I realized no one cared that I was crying. So I stopped crying. And that dialogue, I just wanted to wrap her up and hug her. And because I've thought about those times, where I had, not necessarily that experience, because I immigrated as a child, no, as an adult, and she immigrated as a child. So the experiences are different. And it has not necessarily happened, people of different cultures and different race. Like, people of my own culture and my own race have sometimes made me feel excluded. And, that's how it is, because you're away from stuff that is familiar. You're away from stuff that is, you're away from the people who knew you, from nothing. And then you try to fit in elsewhere, and it doesn't fit because it's not you, it's not yours. It's something alien, and even if the people are not trying to make you feel excluded, you will feel excluded. But I remember this one time in my life where I was supposed to go home, and my then group of friends, and they were not friends, I use that term very loosely, I feel like, my then group of hanging out people, they, their cab came before mine, and they sat in and they left. And I stood there waiting for my cab, and I had never felt more lonely and more scared in my entire life. And it was absurd because, I'd lived there for a couple of years by then, and I shouldn't have felt that way, but I did. I felt like, my person, my people weren't there, because my dad, so overprotective, picked me up, dropped me off from everywhere, when I was a child and a teenager. And similarly, my mom, similarly, my best friends, they never let me alone. They never let me do anything on my own. They were always there for me. And then when you are physically separated, you have to figure out, how to be your own support system. You have to figure out to remind yourself that, there are people rooting for you. There are people who care about you. There are people who want you to get into that cab and get home and be safe, and worry about, when you don't call them back, which I know my friend will, because I haven't called him back and I cut his call. So you have to, I guess, understand in many ways what the story is about. And if at any given point of time you start feeling uncomfortable or start feeling sad, that's just the way the story is written. It's written in a way to make you feel, not, again, like I said, it's not nostalgia, it's not romance, to make you understand the importance of the life that you have left behind and the life you have, and to appreciate and give gratitude for both. And that's what Past Lives is, basically. So I don't want to go into too many details because at some point, I'll leave you with this. At some point, the girl has this conversation with the guy. Nora says, "So would you at any point consider visiting me in the US?" And he has his own plans and his own career, which is taking off. And he's planning to move to China. So that is a no-go. And he's like, "Will you be coming?" And she's like, "No, I have that writer's retreat, so I can't come either." And they have been talking for a while. Perhaps it's not even a flirtationship. That's the part that completely gets me. Like, they're not even flirting with each other. It's more like they're constantly talking to each other. They're constantly, talking about each other's day. Like, I guess how anyone who cares about another person would behave. And she says, maybe we need to not talk so much to each other. And he's shocked and he doesn't understand why. And she's like, I'm supposed to be focusing on my writing, and instead what I'm doing is I'm looking up flights to come see you. I don't know if you want that because you aren't trying to meet me either. And that's phase one. So now they have two past lives, one from childhood memories and one from when they somehow re-met virtually. And they, again, things, their lives took them separate ways because and the reason she drew a boundary was because she didn't quite understand where this was headed. And I think this is something phenomenal because this is hard to do for a lot of people who feel little more than friendship but not enough for romance. You could continue on that virtual chat and have that virtual boyfriend-esque kind of a character, but it's not fair on both people. But if you can, under any circumstances, kind of define that this is a friendship, then it's better for both people. And I think in that situation, they couldn't do that. So the story kind of goes on for them again. Fast forward a couple more years, she's married and she's met this wonderful man and he loves her and he adores her. And she talks about something which is amazing. And it's about when people cross each other on the street and maybe their hands brush across each other, then that means they have 1,000 layers of fate between them that brought them together. So in their past life, they must have known each other. They must have loved each other. They must have been something to each other that made them brush hands across the street. And I think that's what binds the whole story together. So when she meets her husband, she falls in love. And that scene is absolutely adorable because she meets her husband, ding, 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 at the writer's retreat. And many years later, she, gets in touch again with this friend that she left behind. And the first thing the husband asks, and I want to wind up my video on this, the first thing the husband asks her is he attractive? And she goes, I don't really know why he's coming over here. I think he's coming here for a work visit or a vacation visit of some kind. I don't think he's coming here to meet me. And the husband is kind of looking at her and it's like, because he can't quite figure out in this moment if she's lying to herself or if she's lying to him. And that's the first moment of, a little bit of insecurity that you see on the spouse's part, who's not Korean, who doesn't have any cultural belonging with her, And I guess that insecurity comes from there, where, you don't have much in common with your spouse, and then you meet a person who knows them from their childhood, and that it's normal. It's normal behavior. And he follows up that question with, do you think he's attractive? And she is like, well, I guess. I mean, and she's trying very hard to tell him the truth, but not hurt his feelings. And I love that they have put that in the movie. They have explained to us that once you get married, how the complications arise of, being in touch with your friends, and you have to have a really good spouse. And I don't want to spoil what kind of spouse this character is. I want you to watch this actor. I want you to experience what he gave me. and I don't want to spoil the movie. I don't want to tell you how it ends. We are far from the ending, I'll tell you that. So please do check it out. Please do watch it. Please do enjoy it for what it is. Like I said, do not expect a romance. Expect poetry. Expect beautiful storytelling. Expect to feel cozy and comforted and heartbroken and joyful all at the same time. And if after the movie you call up your friend and you bawl your eyes out, I won't blame you. And if you want, come join us here and we'll bawl our eyes out together. And I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening to me. And my friend will be joining me next week with another movie that is very, very dear to us. And I will give you one hint for it. It has something to do with the rains. I know that is very vague and ambiguous, but I promise you it'll be a good one. Like I said again, I love you. Please, please like, share, subscribe. I'm trying really hard to, figure out this whole YouTube situation. It is very difficult. It is really hard to keep up with their ever-changing rules and expectations. But other than that, do let me know what you think about this video in the comments, and please be nice. We are all trying our best. And thank you so much again. And I'll see you soon. Bye.